That's my colleague Mfundo Mabalane speaking to Minister in the Presidency earlier on today. We are at the Nasrec Expo Center. It is a chilly night, but of course there's festivities as well with the gala dinner. President Jacob Zuma is expected a little bit later on. We touched on issues of policy framework and the successes of the ANC, challenges going forward pertain around leadership and also reining in the various structures and of the ANC to have a collective and unified voice. We're still with Tsepo Khadima and Butsang Muelwa. But before we come to our panelists, let's cross to Natasha Piri. She's standing by at the gala dinner. Good evening to you again, Natasha.
I'm a businessman. I'm Jose Grant.
I could hear him in the studio.
Can you hear me? There is a delay. We need to apologize at home if you're wondering what's happening, albeit we're at the same venue, but it's different spaces that we're occupying at the moment. So, Natasha, we hope you can hear us at the moment. And I'm not sure if you have a guest with you, and what is the mood like at the moment at the venue? Before we went to break, it was around the issue of land, and I think you were referring to certain prescripts of the Constitution that can hinder the radical economic transformation process. Speakers, talk us through that.
Yeah, you've got to bear in mind that the 36 fundamental principles of the interim Constitution of 1993, and they are very much cardinal, and they are the foundation of the 1996 Constitution that we now all have and are proud about. But in that, we also have to bear in mind that the Bill of Rights, even if you had 90% of the members of Parliament agreeing, is unchangeable. But that, I think, for a long time, maybe the message has not been told in a manner that the Constitution is very much enabling. It reminds me of what Harvey Mackay once said. He said, you know, skinny children have got, timid politicians have got skinny children. Now, if you got skinny, or rather timid politicians as we have in South Africa, who are afraid to actually legislate as directed by the Constitution, you end up with politicians that are leading very poor, very unequal, and society that we have, which is very much polarized. If you look at Section 25 specifically, when it deals with the issue of land, I do not believe that you need a constitutional amendment, as some have been saying. What you actually need to do is to concentrate on the provision where it says, no one shall be deprived of land. And that alone, the deprivation section of the Constitution is the most enabling, the most powerful. Why Parliament, why the African National Congress for a long time have never exercised that, it is still beyond me. Because there is absolutely no impediment for them to be able to implement. There will be no court, including the Constitutional Court, that can uphold certain people having a concentration of ownership of land when the masses are being deprived. And it's astonishing. So we can only wait and see if this conference will now have the courage to be able to give a clear marching orders to the leadership, to the parliamentarians, to ensure that the legislation that they are currently mulling over, that on land restitution, land redistribution, that they can then rely on the constitutional provision which deals with deprivation instead of the expropriation. Remember, the other thing that we sometimes forget is that if I have made this studio, I manufactured it, I can't be deprived because it is property. but I am responsible having, no one can in this country claim to have had any role in the creation or the existence of land. And I'm wondering on why they would then believe that expropriation of land under that basis will not be covered by the Constitution, and that you have got this concentration. I think the numbers, I mean, people like Botsang have been saying that 35,000 families in this country own the bulk of the land that we have. That certainly, it is unconstitutional. What we now need to see, we need to see a courageous African National Congress, because it is still sitting with more than 63% of the vote, a popular vote. Therefore, we need them to see having that courage to be able to invoke the constitutional clause on deprivation, because majority of people are deprived of land, and that is unconstitutional. So by them not enacting the expropriation of land in order to ensure that the majority are not deprived, that is an act by its very nature is unconstitutional, and the court can't condone it.
Yeah, we'll further unpack that as to how it can be done amicably without infringing on any South Africans' rights, and how we redress issues of injustice. But before we continue, Natasha, I believe third time lucky, you are back with us. Good evening again.
Indeed, Cindy, and to the viewers once again, like you said, third time lucky. Let's just actually focus on issues of economic transformation, that policy per se. I'm actually joined by one of the business leaders here, about PK, from PK and Sons Financial Consultants. So just ask him questions about what they actually think of, you know, economic transformation. I mean, let's just compare radical economic transformation with inclusive growth.
I don't think I'll be able to compare them, because to me, they seem to be almost the same, similar. But to me, the radical transformation, I think, is necessary. And I think if the ANC can come out with a policy that actually protects the sovereignty of the country, that will address the exploitation of our raw material, and that will protect the financial sector and improve security in the country and help on education as well.
Do you think that 23 years down the line, I mean, black people are more empowered in terms of, you know, the economy?
I think the ANC has done a great job to empower black people, and 23 years is too short. But if you look at the business, black business that are around the country, I think they have done very well, but there is still a room for improvement.
And as a business society, what are you expecting out of the policy conference in terms of economic transformation?
I would expect a policy that addresses the sovereignty of the country, that will try and address the means of production to be in the hands of black people, and obviously, and address some few instruments in the economy, like financial services, raw material, so that the country can actually grow on its own and become independent.
And now we've seen that, I mean, the South African economy has, you know, somewhat taken a turn for the worst. We've been downgraded, we're in a technical recession, but we've also had news of, you know, the new mining charter. As a leader in the business society, are you of or supporting that?
I do support the mining charter, okay? And unfortunately, the people who have been enjoying that market will not be happy, maybe. And but the mining charter must go forward.
Okay. And then, in terms of, okay, well, actually, can I just ask you another question, just lightly? How much did you pay for the table tonight?
For the table?
Yes.
25 grand. 25,000 grand.
Okay. Let's just leave it there. Thank you so much, PK. It's always a pleasure having you on ANN7. Unfortunately, Cindy, I'm going to have to cut you for the last time. The program literally is just about to start right now. So back to you in studio.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natasha. As we mentioned, of course, these kind of gatherings typically galvanize a lot of different sectors, captains of industry, government officials, and other key stakeholders. We have our panelists in studio, Tsepo Khadima and Butsang Moilwa. Now, Tsepo, again, when you mentioned how, with the existing policies, or rather the Constitution, very different. I mean, a material difference could be made to the majority of South Africans.
Yeah, certainly. I think the point that I'm making there, Cindy, is that, in fact, the Constitution is all empowering. Within Section 25, what we have seen, we've seen rather a very apologetic parliament that for a long time has used an excuse of, say, we cannot have land expropriation. But in fact, the Constitution, in terms of what it advances and advocates for equality and ensuring that the imbalances of the past are addressed, and it will be exceedingly difficult, in fact, for anyone to hold cause before the courts to justify why they should have a concentration of ownership of land at the expense of the majority, because in so doing, they would in fact be depriving people of the right to own land. So it's something that we can only hope that the delegates that are going to be attending this ANC Policy Conference will now be able to really bring impetus to it. Let it be a tonic to bring about land restitution once and for all.
All right, you at home, if you've just joined us, we're at the Nasrec Expo Center, the ANC's 5th Policy Conference. President Jacob Zuma has arrived, he's taken his seat, accompanied by the First Lady, Uma Mungema. And we also have Patrice Motsepe, he is with Rainbow Minerals, and we have Jomo Dlamini, the president of COSATU, joining him at the first table. It looks like, the program is starting in earnest, and we'll toss to that event, or rather as they take to the podium. Yes, the room has filled up, and as we mentioned, it's quite a myriad of different interests that are gathered there: business, government, industry, talking about issues of the economy, land, and that's Treasurer General of the ANC, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, and we'll cross over to that.
Secretary General, Comrade Mantashe, and Sislwandle, Comrade DSG, Comrade Jesse Duarte, the members of the National Executive Committee present here, the ministers, the leaders of the various leagues of the ANC, the leadership of the alliance, from COSATU, the president who is here, the leadership from Communist Party and SANCO, all the honored guests who are here, leaders in business, the diplomatic corps, the ambassadors and consular corps present amongst us. All of you, ladies and gentlemen, we bid you welcome to this evening. I'd like to say to you, the ANC considers it a very special honor and privilege to be welcoming you on this event, which is a gala dinner, essentially a fundraising gala dinner, but also we host it ahead of the National Policy Conference, which will be hosted from tomorrow. It's an unusually longer one, which is going to go on for about 7 days. And we always find it important to meet the night before for you to interact with the president, who will be sharing his ideas on a various manner of issues, including some of those that relate to the policy conference. As of tonight, we do not have a very lengthy program. Effectively, we would like you to relax, enjoy yourselves, and interact we must just make you aware that the ANC always values your support. All of you who are here have been with us for quite a long time, giving us support in various ways. As you know, the ANC survives on the goodwill of its members and supporters. As an organization that is actually essentially a non-governmental organization that really requires your support all the time. So we would like to say to you, whilst you have given us support this time around, we do hope that you will understand that we will be coming to you every now and again to ask for that support, which we have appreciated that you have generously given to the ANC. And of course, we contact some of you, but we just want to urge you not to wait until we contact you. Feel free to come and offer unsolicited support. The ANC is a very friendly organization that will always welcome all the support that you'll be bringing forth. As of tonight, there's only one speaker, and that is our president. And we want to say to you, you will be, please relax. But let me say before I settle down that we want to give, to tender the apology from the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, who was assigned to the funeral service of Sir Kitumile, President of Botswana, former President of Botswana, Masire, who was not able to come back because of the programs that got him delayed that side. Otherwise, we always make sure that the leadership of the ANC is here. And I may as well also just welcome my comrades and colleagues from the National Executive Committee and your partners. This is one time when we would like your spouses, your partners, to always, who always find you busy up and down. We make sure that today they come here with you, and we make sure that you are captured for the rest of the evening, so that when in the future the ANC demands more of your time, they understand, because they've at least had the opportunity to be with you today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please relax and enjoy the evening. And I'm going to invite our Chaplain General, Reverend Mehana, to come forth and do grace for us and do an opening prayer as well. And thereafter, we would like you to enjoy your starters as soon as the Reverend Mehana has concluded his prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Mehana, please welcome our Chaplain General.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Gracious God, it's always wonderful to be in your presence. It is also wonderful to know that and feel the vibrations of your Holy Spirit within and amongst us. Thank you, Lord, for giving this time to all of us to gather in this way, so that we may have this moment of fellowship amongst each other. And we invoke your presence, that you join us by the powerful grace that you always give to us. Here is this gathering, which has been planned and been set aside for the purpose that has been explained. We ask you, Lord, to bless the outcome and the results that will be good for those who have planned that we have this meeting. Here are your people coming from far. Thank you for the traveling masses to come and enjoy this fellowship. Lord, you know that we meet before a lot of work in the next few days. We will continue to ask you to accompany us as we deliberate on matters that affect your people whom you have loved so much. We will always give thanks to you for the health of our President and his family, that he continues to lead this organization with all those who work with him. We will always pray that you give him guidance and wisdom as to how we should lead this movement. We give thanks to you that he is with us now and with all the people who work with him in making our country to be a peaceful destination among the League of Nations. We invoke now that you give us the abundance of your grace as we are about to share in this fellowship. Put the words of wisdom in his mouth so that you can give to us the ears to hear, but also give us the tenacity to be able to put in action that which will be of benefit to your people. As your people will be giving generously, as they've been requested to do so, soften their hearts and deepen their pockets, that they may give happily as they may be. Happy are those who give in a happy mood, because you are the God who doubles those who give generously. May that be fulfilled today. And as we are about to eat and drink, it is not because, Lord, we are better than any of those of your people who don't have anything to eat tonight. As this movement took it upon itself the responsibility to fight poverty for those who don't have anything, make us not to take for granted the plate that is put before us. As we eat, let us think of those who don't have this privilege. We notice that we have brought together those who have means to work and provide work. We pray that you give them more of that so that they can be able to employ millions of our people who don't have jobs. We come before you, Lord, and saying to you, we might be those few who are selected to meet in this way, but the rest of this country looks up to the outcomes of these meetings so that you can even help those who live in an unequal way. We bring all these prayers before you that continue to prick our conscience, that as we have these privileges, we deepen our thoughts, we deepen our pastoral care for those who don't, so that we can always be the ambassadors of your grace and extension of your kingdom even to those who don't have. Bless this evening. Give us the abundance of all who you are, so that we may feel that you have been the God who have been with us. We're looking forward to the success and peaceful outcomes when the time comes for the people to give, that they may give generously in supporting this movement. You have journeyed with it for 105 years. Us to be humble before you and give us the ear to hear your people when they cry to us. And we don't take them for granted, but we listen carefully and ask for your wisdom to do what is best for them. Be with us this evening and bless all what is to happen. In the name of the Father and of the Son and the Holy Spirit, you being one God. Amen.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your starters.
live visuals coming from Nasrec Expo Center and Reverend Vukile Mihana opening with a word of prayer, asking for wisdom, that the proceedings may be blessed, and asking for abundance of grace, and praying for the health of the president. And of course, for us to be cognizant that we live in a society that's unequal, where many go to bed without food, and mention there that we don't take the freedoms and the privileges and means that we have for granted. The delegation or delegates are now relaxing some mood music. You can never go wrong with a bit of foreplay in the background as they start the event or the proceedings in earnest. We're still here in studio with our panelists. You'll see a number of familiar faces, business people that came out in their numbers. And also this is a fundraiser, as the Treasurer General, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, alluded to. It is tradition to have various interest groups coming to this gathering, because it's the engagements will even permeate beyond the policy conference, going into government structures and developmental imperatives that the country needs, so that all South Africans can benefit from the wealth and prosperity in the country. Our panelists, Tsepo Khadima and Wutsang Muelwa, again, thank you so much for staying with us. That was, the opening with a word of prayer for me just sets the tone as to how this policy conference will go.
It's kind. We are missing out sitting in the studio here. I hope the ANN7...
fear of missing out.
I hope the ANN7 viewers can know what we are freezing when we are sitting in the room. But anyway, getting back to business, Cindy, there's 2 or 3 elements that I've picked up. The mood is joyful. It's wonderful. It's good to see ANC leaders. I haven't seen the deputy president of the ANC yet, and that raises concerns for me. But
no, I think he's deployed to Botswana. For
okay. For the funeral service.
Correct.
But the mood is joyful. It's very happy.
Hey, what a controversy. I'm now saying CR is not there deliberately. Where were you going with that?
I was looking for the deputy president of the country and of the ruling party. But what I've noticed, and you have mentioned it, this is not only preparations and a gala dinner for the policy conference. It is very important for South Africans to know that this also works as a fundraising, event for the ruling party. And it will be very interesting that amid the challenges that the ANC has been faced with, you have seen the loyal funders of the ANC, the loyal business people who over years have been behind this former liberation movement turned political party. And they are all there, and you can see that people are still believing in supporting and standing behind the ruling party. But that should not be the end of dinner and having nice food and hugs this evening. It is the 2,500 African National Congress policy developers or representatives that we call delegates, who from tomorrow will be sitting there shaping up policies that may go to become the laws of this country, that may influence the policies of this country in future. I think that is what is more important than having a beautiful evening that we are having tonight. But I must say, it is very interesting and encouraging to see that people like Mr. Patrice Motsepe, they are still behind the ruling party. I've seen quite a number of business people, but I've also listened to the past. Unfortunately, as per tradition, they relied on Christian prayers only. And while we are closing the Ramadan month, normally they would have brought 3 or 4 other religious denominations to pray for the liberation movement and for the event. But for the pastor who was there to pray for the health of the president, for unity within the organization, and for progress as a country, I think that's what we need at the moment. The country is in a turmoil. It's in a challenging state whereby we need calm heads in order to move forward. And I'm saying this has set a beautiful tone, and we must come with radical policies after this beautiful event.
Yeah, and Eid Mubarak to Muslim viewers. Tsepo, just your observation so far of course, it's a capacity crowd. It is a flagship calendar event to be attended.
Yeah, look, I think it symbolizes the fact that it's a room that is full of people, and because it's hosted by the Progressive Business Forum, which is the forum which organizes business people that have got interest in supporting the African National Congress. I think that in itself shows that a great deal, a cross-section of the society are very much interested in what the ANC is about, what ANC is doing, and more so even seeing how they can be able to support it, and in this case to support it in real terms. I mean, from the time that I arrived here when I was trying to get accreditation, I couldn't help but really start to see that this is exceedingly an expensive conference. The logistics, the infrastructure that had to be put in place for this, the gathering of the people from right across the country to be able to converge here is an exceedingly expensive event that it needs business to be able, or those that have got the means, to be able to support it. But to support it, not, I think, instead of what are we going to get back, but it's part and parcel of democracy. Democracy is expensive and it needs to be supported. So I think this is symbolic that a great deal of people are still very much supportive of the African National Congress. But also it raises, I think, a question that are the fundraising dinners still the most effective way for a party as large as the African National Congress to be able to raise money? Because we now know as a matter of course that the historical backers of the African National Congress, particularly from Scandinavian countries and other countries across Europe, as well as in the East, have all pulled out and said, well, now you are on your own, you are a big party, you've achieved liberation, we think that let's go and support somebody else, which is really one of the challenges that the ANC has. So one of the ways that I think they've never fully also articulated or come up or formulated a strategy of how are they going to continue to be self-sufficient financially, not to have to only rely on fundraising dinners or donations as the case might be. And I think it's maybe one of the things that the ANC needs to look at as to how do they have a consistent, predictable source of income in order to be able to run their political programs. Because as much as this is at a national level, you can see that most people would want to go and donate, but at the province, at the zone, at the regional, at the branch level, the story is completely different. There isn't as much funds that are available for them to be able to run their programs. You think
with this organizational renewal that the policy document speaks to capacitate Luthuli House as the center of power, having more permanent skilled personnel to run the affairs of the ANC vis-a-vis the government, that issue of how then do you have multiple income streams and the necessary resources will come up? Because if you don't have the means, that's where things open up either to corruption or even horse trading.
Well, let me just comment on that. The organization has grown so much over years. And also the economy of the country developing and of the world. The resources that the ANC used to get when it was a liberation movement and within the first 10 years of being a ruling party, they will not be sufficient today. And obviously there's new players within the political spectrum. We have the EFF, COPE and UDM now, which were not there before. But the organization will have to go and relook at their fundraising model, as Tsepo has said, and also how they apply it. The idea of having skills at Luthuli House and retaining that skills in order to make sure that policies of the organizations are effected into government policies or influence government policies, it's a very good idea. It's a very good process, but it will need large resource investment to be able to do that. We saw the Youth League came with a proposal that, for example, they should have 2 secretary generals at the moment, or deputies at the moment, in order for one person to look at organizing, another person to be helping the treasurer general to look at fundraising and so forth. That will actually strain the resources of the organization, which has, along the lines of growing or being a political party, it has obviously lost some friends who were funding and all that. It has been questioned at the moment. We know that there are proposals, to put a bill in government, which I personally think is a very good bill of funding political parties, increasing the funding of political parties. So all those processes, and I think Tsepo is correct, they should actually revisit this process of saying, are gala dinners working? Is the African National Congress an organization that should still be focusing on black tie occasion gala dinners, or taking this kind of process to the masses and the grassroots and actually You know, when I think of the mining charter at this instance, City, we could have been in a situation whereby the Minister of Minerals and Energy, of Mineral Resources, has taken this mining charter to the branches, to the regions of the ANC before it arrives at this conference, and then come and say, but I've consulted on the ground. And I know it involves a lot of resources and time and so forth, but this is the opportunity for the organization to say, we've been doing this thing the same way for the last 20 to 30 years. Can we come with a different modus operandi and say, how can we do it better to can reach to the people so that they should not lose touch? You know, during the liberation movement, it was very easy to can stay in touch with the people on the ground because you had to rely on people in the ground. But being a political party, there's tend to be a vacuum in the middle whereby political leaders of the organization, they focus on governance and politics and building the organization. And there's a space between, or a chasm or a gap between the political office bearers as well as the grassroots who are actually keeping the organization alive. And they should be able to manage that because it has grown and evolved to be at a stage whereby new modalities have come to place. When I came with Tsepo for accreditation yesterday, actually, he must tell you, he got very angry with the queue as much as it was organized. He left because the queue was long. We spoke of a situation whereby do people have to go through the process of accreditation like it happened at the moment? Why can't people have an internet process where they can register online and then get the accreditation online, and when they arrive at a conference like this, they just pick up the accreditation cards instead of spending 2 to 3 hours like we did in order to collect accreditation cards. So the organization must evolve and develop to be able to handle this thing better. But it will need youngsters, it will need secretary generals and people who actually are technologically advanced and say we can't do things the same way we're doing them in 1993, 92, and 91. And unfortunately and sadly for the country, the veterans, I followed the news this afternoon, they are missing the mark, if I may use, borrow from B.B. Winans, they've missed the mark. This policy conference is going ahead. The ANC military, not military, the elders of the ANC have decided to withdraw and miss this boat that is sailing. Sadly, also, the so-called military council as well, they've disassociated themselves from this very important. In my books, this is the most important.
Sorry, Butsang, and I think, hopefully there'll be a meeting of minds, even post or during the conference, for the interest of the unity in action. But so that you don't feel deprived, you were saying that it looks so much fun and enjoyable at the venue while we're out here at the studio. We're going to cross into the venue currently where the gala dinner is underway.
Yeah. Mom. Bit of volume here, man. Thanks. 4 and 5, a bit of volume, please. Just a little. Thanks.
Rakesh. So if you've just joined us with the NASREC Expo Center, it's the ANC 5th National Policy, where various branches and structures will be discussing a document that has been circulated already for adoption or ratification, if you will, of the policies that will guide the organization post-December with its new leadership into the next 5 years. And so as you can see, typically we already know what the format is in terms of the shape of the gala dinners, but the work in earnest will start in 2 days' time. I think the first 2 days they'd set aside in self-reflection, introspection, etc. And again, these were set aside for the 101 or the veterans, as you mentioned. I think that matter has been dealt with. If anybody hasn't made peace with it, it's going to have to be done on another day.
Yeah, look, I think the next 2 days will be interesting to see if they will be able to achieve maximum attendance, because those days were set aside for this reflection and consultation, as so demanded by this grouping of persons, self-styled as 101 stalwarts and MK Council. So now that both of them that demanded a seat at the table have now declined to take their position, I'm not so sure if it will have much value, as much as the leadership of the ANC has now decided to still go ahead and say that they are going to be reflecting. I'm not so sure in terms of the value that will be derived, but I think that still stands to be seen. Most importantly will be in terms of attendance. Will they tomorrow and Saturday be able to have maximum attendance? And then with the actual policy conference and policy discussions and deliberations in commission starting from Sunday until Thursday. So certainly I think it's going to be a very interesting week. The world most certainly will be interested to find out, is there anything that is new that is going to come out of this? In my mind, it will be very difficult to not have to really bring about a new way of doing things contrary to what we have done previously. Today, if you look at it, I heard the Secretary General earlier today saying that the economic problems that we have cannot wait for whatever policy formulation now to be adopted and ratified in December. They will have to start implementing some of those. So that itself is a cue to say, well, come next week, Thursday, what exactly are they going to be announcing, for example? Is there going to be a fundamental shift in macroeconomic policy? Are they going to be agreed now following this conference on the need for radical economic transformation? And if they do agree on radical economic transformation, exactly what are the mechanisms, what are the measures that they will put in place to ensure that it is implemented and that the implementation itself is monitored to ensure that they can make mid-course corrections along the way? I mean, it makes me think of when Pravin Gordhan was still the Minister of Finance. In his last budget speech, he said something fundamental. He said 150 billion rand of government's 500 billion rand procurement spend will be set aside for black businesses. Now here we are 3 months later from the new financial year of government. There hasn't been anybody, Treasury hasn't come up and said, of the 150 billion rand that has been set aside for black businesses, this is how much has actually been allocated to in tender or in contract to those black businesses. So we don't really know that. Will we come next budget speech and find out that actually we do not even have 10%, which is my suspicion that even 10% will not be spent. Why? Because one of the key fundamentals to achieving that 150 billion rand procurement spend for black businesses is the banking. Now, there are no banks. All the 5 major banks, including the other smaller banks, as well as foreign banks, none of them have come to the fore to bring about the resources, more specifically in terms of working capital. Whereas with the larger businesses, white business, we see facilities in terms of overdraft facilities, loans being approved.
I think with the immediate, in the absence of a state bank, how then does the policy apply or is evaluated, monitored, implemented using the very same institutions and structures that we have?
I don't think we need, especially as a proclamation has been made by the former Minister of Finance during the festival, I don't think we need to wait until there's a state bank. We don't have to. The Treasury or government has institutional processes that may be used like it was followed with the Department of Trade and Industries, BEE Charter and so forth, in order to make sure that black businesses have a share or a cut within this whole process.